don't talk about Army, no, no, no. We don't talk about Army. But Lone Ranger sucks.
Yes.
Done.
Yes.
Not on Disney Plus, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, but anyway.
Welcome to 2022, ladies and gentlemen, and it is another episode of StillerBros at the Movies. And today we are going to be seeing a bit more high-class fare than we are normally accustomed to, because today we are partaking in Death on the Nile.
So, 5 years ago, Kenneth Branagh, a director primarily known for his adaptations of Shakespeare work, as well as several bit acting roles, such as the Harry Potter franchise, and directing the first Thor movie, set out to adapt one of Agatha Christie's most seminal works, Murder on the Orient Express.
And as someone who just rewatched it today, might I say, it is so good, so awesome. Like, you don't usually see a disturbing murder scene that nearly brings you to tears with how emotional it is, but this is a movie that does it.
Yeah. So, obviously, with the critical and commercial success that the movie saw, it would make sense for them to greenlight a sequel. However, around the time that they were shooting the sequel, a little thing called the Fox-Disney merger happened.
Now, normally this wouldn't do all this. Now, ordinarily this wouldn't have done a lot. It delayed the movie a little bit, but not so much that it would be like, okay, fine, But the Disney Fox merger did push it a little bit into 2020. That's fine. Then Plague.
So then the movie got pushed again and again and again. And in the time that the movie got pushed, several of the stars of this ensemble cast got a little too comfortable being non-controversial. So they fucked their lives up. So basically this movie got a little bit of an issue. But also to show you how long it's been since this movie was in production, Kenneth Branagh, as a director, has put out 4 movies in the time since Murder on the Orient Express. At least 2 of them went into production after this one finished production. One of them has gone so far along now that it just got nominated for multiple Oscars. And that was a movie that was written, shot, and released during the entire lockdown.
But let's talk a little bit more about Kenneth Branagh, the pride of Belfast, Ireland, now that Van Morrison is kind of an anti-masker prick.
Speaking of controversial figures.
But Kenneth Branagh is not a guy to take things lightly, basically. The guy is known for being one of Hollywood's biggest hams, to the point that Murder on the Orient Express as a movie shows just as hammy his acting behind the camera as it is in front of the camera. Everything is over the top, big, epic, awesome. The scene where he confronts all the suspects on the top of a mountain is one of the most epic scenes of just a guy talking that you will ever see.
Eclipsed only by his speech in Hamlet, where he is doing a soliloquy on a fucking mountain, and the camera in 70mm is pulling back continuously.
Kenneth Branagh is not a man who is going to who does things anyway. Kenneth Branagh, hammy as all hell, which is why I love his interpretation of Hercule Poirot. Hercule, not Hercules. It's Hercule. I do not slay the lions.
You can tell I watched it today.
But I love his interpretation, because him and the screenwriter Michael Green's interpretation of the character, because he just has this genius introvert kind of way about him, that he has a moral code. He has this way with people. He has this way of solving every mystery that you just kind of feel like he's playing the game of chess as everyone around him is going. which is settled very well in the introduction of the Murder on the Orient Express. Which is why when Death on the Nile was announced, I was so happy because the tease at the end of the first movie got me pumped. And then they announced the cast, and it is almost as star-studded as the first movie. I mean, I don't think anyone's nearly as big a star as the cast of the first Murder on the Orient Express, but we got some pretty big name talent.
I mean,
and Russell Brand, because even before he spent the last 2 years going crazier and crazier, I thought that's a weird casting choice.
But obviously the last movie had huge stars. Even some of the smaller stars were growing in popularity, like Daisy Ridley and Leslie Odom Jr.
But here the stars are. It's not nearly as big of a star-studded cast, but it's still pretty stacked. In addition to Kenneth Branagh reprising his role as Hercule Poirot, we have Gal Gadot and the aforementioned Russell Brand, Letitia Wright. God, you're disappointing.
What a fucking disappointment that was.
Armie Hammer, the cannibal.
We've mentioned him before. We've already mentioned who was canceled so long ago that we mentioned this already.
A year ago.
Over a year, almost a year ago anyway.
But then again, we didn't talk about Armie.
Yeah.
But on top of that, we also have Jennifer Saunders coming in. We have off the top of my head, I can't think of too many. I can never think of too many off the top of my head when I'm listing this particular cast.
This is not a lot of big names this time. Not a lot of giant names this time around.
I mean, but in the end, and also this movie has not been advertised a lot, probably because some of its most prominent actors are somewhat controversial,
including someone who for a myriad of reasons is prominently featured in the movie.
So it's just a question of. So in the end, it's just kind of a question of. I mean, at least in the first Murder on the Orient Express, they got lucky with the fact that any controversial at the time cast member dies at the beginning of the story. They got lucky by casting the cast member that was embroiled in a current controversy as the murder victim. Here, they ain't so lucky.
No.
The place is crammed with the cast is unfortunately problematic, and so many of them are still around. And unfortunately only one of them can be the murder victim, and I don't know which one it is because I have not read up on this one.
Yeah.
I have not. When it comes to being Agatha Christie fans, we know her by reputation. We've just never read any of her books.
Yeah. So we haven't, but we've seen adaptations of her movies, of her works. Like we saw the 1945, and then there were none, and obviously the most recent Murder on the Orient Express.
Well, I've seen the whole thing twice. You've only seen pieces of it on cable.
Yeah.
But in the end, we don't know what the solution to this one is. We don't know. We're not even 90% sure who dies. The trailers seem to imply that it's Gal Gadot, but I don't know.
We won't know for sure until we get in the theater, but
what else is there? Patrick Doyle, Kenneth Branagh's usual composer, is back to score it. So that should be good. Unfortunately, there's not going to be an original song by them in this time around, which is fine, I guess. It's not exactly a director's trademark that he needs to write a new song for every single time he makes a movie. It just feels a little weird that the first one had one and this one won't.
Yeah, but.
And also, I'm sure. And also, this one seems to be. And also, in a lot of ways, this one seems to be that first movie, but on a boat this time. Which you know what? That's fine. That's fine. I once again liked the first movie. Rewatching it today, I appreciated so much more of it as it was going by. Kenneth Branagh really is a good director. I don't know, and no, I haven't seen Artemis Fowl, so please don't make me eat my words on that.
Yeah, again, like we said in the King of Staten Island review, enough canaries went down in that coal mine and didn't come out that we're not going to touch that.
But yeah, what else is there to say? This movie's been getting pretty good reviews because it's a lot like the first one. It's a star-studded cast. Kenneth Branagh is earning another insanely over-the-top performance and another insanely over-the-top directing job. At least that's what we've heard, but we won't know until we get in there. So, yeah, without saying too much more, we'll see you after the jump.
Yep. Okay, so now we are out,
And I still like the first one a little bit better, but that was still a really good time at the movies.
yeah, it was a pretty solid time at the movies. I just love a whodunit. That's why I can't wait for Knives Out 2 later this year. But this is just a pretty fun time at the movies if you just want to get out of the house.
Now, also remember to be safe and be vaccinated.
Yeah,
hopefully be vaccinated. If you feel comfortable, if you only feel comfortable wearing a mask, then do that. But as we've kept saying over the last year and a half or so of episodes like this is going to be you got to be careful when going out. But this is a fun time but at least this is a decently fun time at the movies.
Yeah. So let's get started. Kenneth Branagh is fucking phenomenal as Poirot.
Now, the thing I love about this interpretation of the character, knowing nothing about prior interpretations, is that this guy is just how all the eccentricities of him are just so fun. This guy reads Dickens and laughs out loud like no one's around. He is obsessed with desserts, but he's also very meticulous about having everything organized just so. And Branagh plays him fantastically as if this is the kind of a guy this is his detective quirk, that if anything's just askew enough that he will hone in on it and be like, got it.
Granted, this is kind of a cliche detective quirk at this point, but then again, this is kind of one of the reasons why this quirk exists in the first place. Heyman Holmes basically created the quirk of the hyper-neurotic, fixated detective.
Basically, this movie almost falls under the John Connor effect in the fact that Poirot mystery have been adapted in just the slightest ways so much over the years that it almost feels like it's cribbing from the movies that have been heavily inspired by it.
Yeah.
And not only as an actor but as a director, Branagh is so good at this kind of thing. The man directs scenes where two characters are just in a room arguing as if it's the most epic of gunfights. There are so many one takes. It is shot like a live tape of a play, which is obviously clear because of the fact that Branagh comes from a theater background as both a director and an actor.
It is so incredible how he doesn't cut away, how there's so many how we just have the actors talking for long stretches of time without ever cutting between shots. It's just one long shot of the camera spinning around in the room or just moving.
And that's very much in the way that the characters will appear here. Like I said at the very beginning, this movie is very theatrical, and Kenneth Branagh, as a theater director, plays things to the theatrical hilts. That's why he was probably the best choice to bring these particular novels to the big screen, because he will play them as though they are he's basically live taping a play, only with the camera moving a little bit more actively. And as such, the cast very much seems game for that kind of thing. It's kind of hard to single out members of the cast without making it clear who's more important into who done it. So it's kind of hard.
I mean, Emma Mackey was great as the character she was, but one that kind of stuck out to me was Gal Gadot, because we haven't really seen her do any kind of acting to this extent before. Like, we've seen her in Wonder Woman, but after Wonder Woman 1984, pretty much her acting anyway is kind of impressive.
And it's kind of fun to see her play basically bitch likable bitch.
It's kind of
Is the way I could best describe it. She's like that girl. She's the girl in high school that acted so. You know how how for like about 10 years of Taylor Swift's career, whenever somebody else would win an award that she was nominated for, she would have this face like, "I am so fake happy for you."
She's the girl in
She's the girl. Gadot's character in this movie is the embodiment of that.
She's the girl she's that girl in that high school who was friends with everybody, but you knew she was talking shit about you behind your back.
And the way that the other characters tend to talk about her, that is not an assumption that goes lightly.
Yeah.
Now there's a fun and I think there's a few moments of genuine comedy because comedy like things like where Poirot is accusing people of murder and his associate book is just like he accuses everyone of murder. It's a habit, I know. Bad habit, I know. But or when Armie Hammer just straight up calls a character melodramatic, and I'm like, do you know what movie you're in?
It's the mystery, and you get caught up in the mystery just from the melodramatics and the way these actors are playing off each other and clearly just kind of having a ball. Like Kenneth Branagh just needed an excuse to bring all these actors together to pretend to get drunk and have fun on a ship, but then they just end up getting drunk and having fun on a ship.
And the mystery is because it's an Agatha Christie novel, but Michael Green's screenplay creates a twisting, turning mystery that also has legitimate stakes, also creates real emotional depth to this. I really hope that we can get a third Poirot mystery that Kenneth Branagh can find it in his schedule to make another one of these, because I would really love to see him keep doing if just a side project between the things that he more wants to do, like Belfast or another Shakespeare adaptation if he's got one in him. Just so that he can have this nice little thing to come back to where it's like, I'm just going to put on a fake mustache, do a funny accent, hang out with a bunch of celebrities, and adapt one of the greatest works of detective fiction ever written.
Speaking of which, we have a genuinely great origin story for a genuinely great mustache.
Yes. In a prologue to World War I, we find out a little bit more of Poirot's backstory, and not sure if it's true to the novels, because I assume the mustache isn't a thing that's focused on as much in a book. This is clearly something made.
This was clearly a choice by Kenneth Branagh. We don't even know if the character actually had a mustache.
It's very much a thing. It was very much a thing that was probably created half as a real weird theatrical thing, half as a sight gag, and they just kind of ran with it after the first movie.
Much like the prosthetic nose in certain productions of Cyrano.
But when it comes down to it, this became a big part of Kenneth Branagh's portrayal of the character, and God, is it just fun to watch him walk around in an outrageous accent with an equally outrageous mustache, while Patrick Doyle's rather wonderful jazz has influenced score plays in the background to remind you that this movie is taking place sometime in the early 1930s.
But it's nice that Kenneth Branagh kind of found the franchise that he is capable of making.
He did. Thor, he did fantastic on, but didn't end up coming back. Didn't come back for later movies. Jack Ryan movie kind of floundered.
People remember to the point that people don't even remember they did Jack Ryan.
And Artemis Fowl. Well, let's just say we probably wouldn't be shocked if Disney decided to reboot that in a couple more, like 5 years down the line.
Like they're doing with Percy Jackson. But this is some material he can really sink his teeth into, and he is just fabulous at it.
So once again, if you loved the first Murder on the Orient Express, if you loved the way that Kenneth Branagh just basically brought a few famous friends together to play a murder mystery to the hilt in the most melodramatic and wonderful fashion, then you're probably going to love this just as much, despite the certain problematic members of the cast.
Yes.
It's going to be fun. It's intriguing. It's melodramatic as all hell. And once again, I hope to God that Kenneth Branagh makes as many of these as he clearly wants to make.
Yeah.
So, that being said, that's it for right now, guys. 2022 promises to be a good year for movies if everything goes as entirely planned. So be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to tune in next time when I'm vengeance. Bye.